Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, fa'auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to another episode of Around the Quran in 30 days with me, rajaziaulhaq. Today, inshallah, we are fortunate enough to be starting juz number 12 of the Quran. And so, inshallah, we'll get straight to talking about just a brief snapshot of this, and then we'll explain what we will talk about today, inshallah. Okay, so just to give you an overview, juz number 12 basically consists of, again, two parts. The first part of juz number 12 is Surah Hud, which is from verses 6 to 123. And then we have Surah Yusuf, which is from verses 1 to 52. Now, the entire Surah Yusuf is actually 111 ayat. So it's not going to be feasible for me to do half the story and then leave the other half for tomorrow. So I thought what I will do, inshallah, is that we'll give you a snapshot view of Surah Hud. And because a lot of the themes in Surah Hud are something that is already has been touched upon or will be touched upon in the future. And then today, inshallah, I'm going to give you like the whole story of Yusuf alayhi salam, inshallah. So I'm really excited about that. I hope you are as well. Let me just give you now a snapshot view of Surah Hud before we actually move on to our today's lesson. So Surah Hud, as we said yesterday, is revealed in the same time frame as Surah Yunus. So this is basically around the 12th year after Hijrah. And this is the period when the Prophet ﷺ was alleged for fabrication, that this book has been fabricated. His invitation was looked at with doubt and suspicion, and it was assumed that he was engaged in some type of magic. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that type of evil and wicked behavior and thought. So this is basically Surah Hud. Now Surah Hud, if you look at the central theme, it talks about nations that will get respite if they accept the invitation of Tawheed, and it talks about those who committed shirk and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed those nations who did not change their ways. Starting from paragraph 1 to paragraph 8, it talks about Tawheed. The second paragraph talking about the people of Nuh. The third paragraph talking about the people of Ad, meaning the Prophet Hud alayhi salam and his people, which is why the surah has been named that. The fourth paragraph talking about Salih alayhi salam and his people, the people of Samud. Fifth paragraph talks about the people of Lut and how they were destroyed. The sixth paragraph is talking about the people of Madian, yani the nation of Shuaib alayhi salam. And the seventh paragraph is again talking about Musa alayhi salam and his people. And the eighth paragraph is the conclusion, which talks about the fact that Tawheed is something that has to be maintained under all circumstances, and nations have been destroyed because they left the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they began to follow in their own whims and desires. So this is just a snapshot view of Surah Hud. Now let me just take you to Surah Yusuf, because the snapshot view of Surah Yusuf is very, very simple and very basic. I'll just zoom that out for you. It's very clear. That's why I said that we'll spend the whole time, inshallah, talking about the story. So the first paragraph is from verses 1 to 2. That's it. It's an introduction of the purpose of revelation of the Quran. And so we'll just read that in just a few minutes. And then the second paragraph, which is from verses 3 to 101, which is pretty much the entire surah, is basically talking about the story of Yusuf alayhi salam in its entirety. This is a surah that was revealed in one shot. And so the whole story has been mentioned in this surah. And it is not found in any other parts of the Quran, except you get like one verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, which is verse number, I believe, 133, I guess, in which Yaqub alayhi salam has been mentioned, and how he spoke to his sons at the time when he was leaving this world. He told them not to commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But otherwise, this is the entire story, one shot, revealed in chronological order in Surah Yusuf. The third paragraph, which is from verses 102 to 111, is the conclusion of this surah. So this is basically how the surah has been laid out. Now let's come to Surah Yusuf and the first few ayat, and let's have a look at it, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in that. Now let's just zoom that in, and okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts the surah with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alif Lam Ra, tilka ayatul kitabil mubin. Alif Lam Ra, these are the huruf muqatta'at. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says tilka ayatul kitabil mubin, that this is a book with clear verses. And inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyan la'allakum taqilun. So we have revealed unto you this book in Arabic, this Quran in Arabic, so that you may understand. So Arabic is a living, thriving language, and people can study it even to this date. A lot of people in the world, millions of people in the world speak this language, and so we are able to understand this Quran through this beautiful language. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ بِمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ وَإِن كُنْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ لَمِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. That we relate to you the best of narrations, أَحْسَنُ الْقَصَصِ. So the scholars mentioned that this is the greatest story of all time. بِمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ, as it was revealed to you in this Quran. And before it, you were people who were ghafilin, you were unaware of these stories. And then now the story begins. إِذْ قَالَ يُوسُفُ لِأَبِيهِ يَا أَبَتِ إِنِّي رَأَيْتُ أَحَدَ عَشَرَ كَوْكَبًا وَالشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرَ رَأَيْتُهُمْ لِلسَّاجِدِينَ. That Yusuf alayhi salam came to his father and he called him with a beautiful name, Ya Abati. Yani, he didn't say Ya Abi, which also means my father. Ya Abati has a little more love in it. So he said to his father, Ya Abati, oh my dear father. And he said, I saw a dream. So the story begins with this point when Yusuf alayhi salam had a dream. Now, one thing that we have to understand about Yusuf alayhi salam is that there is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he mentioned that Yusuf alayhi salam, we all know he was very handsome. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he was given half of the beauty. Now, half of the beauty of the world, half of the beauty of the universe, wallahu a'lam, but he said he was given half the beauty that Allah had made. Secondly, we know about Yusuf alayhi salam that he was the noblest person ever. What do we mean by he was the noblest person ever? Because when the Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ about who is the most noblest of people, the Prophet ﷺ said it is Yusuf. Why Yusuf alayhi salam? Because he was a prophet. He was the son of a prophet, who was the son of a prophet, who was the son of a prophet. Yusuf alayhi salam was the son of Yaqub alayhi salam. So Yusuf alayhi salam is a prophet, his father Yaqub alayhi salam is a prophet, his father Ishaq alayhi salam is a prophet, and his father Ibrahim alayhi salam is also a prophet. So if you want to look at someone based upon their lineage and family, there was no one greater than Yusuf alayhi salam, because his entire, his father, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather, and he himself as well, all prophets. Allahu Akbar. So nobody can be nobler than that. So this is when the Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ, he replied that it is Yusuf alayhi salam. Now, when we're looking at the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, there are many lessons. Now, I don't know how on earth am I going to summarize the story in about 40 minutes. When I taught this Surah Yusuf, at the Fast University over a semester. So something that's been taught over a semester, to sum it up into like 40 minutes is going to be next to impossible, but inshallah, as they say, nothing is impossible and impossible is nothing. So inshallah, we will try our level best to do this inshallah. Okay, so the first part, as I mentioned, of the surah talks about Yusuf alayhi salam coming to his father and telling him that he had a dream. Now the father of Yusuf alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, did not dismiss the young boy and say, you know what, dreams are dreams, why are you coming to me? This shows you a very important aspect of parenting, that whenever your children come to you, even if it's with the most trivial of things, give them time and listen to them. Because if you want them to come to you for advice in big matters, then you need to pay attention to them when they're young. And even if they come to you with trivial things, that, oh look, what did I draw here? And what happened? I was playing with my friend and this happened. So pay attention to their stories. Yaqub alayhi salam did not dismiss Yusuf alayhi salam when he's coming to share a dream. Rather, he asked him that, explain to me, which means that this had been happening before, meaning that this was not the first time Yusuf alayhi salam is coming to talk to his father. He's been coming to his father regularly and his father is giving him time. So when he explains his dream, that I saw that the sun and the moon and 11 stars are bowing before me. Yaqub alayhi salam told him that this is a beautiful dream, but please do not share it with your siblings, meaning do not share it with your brothers. So Yaqub alayhi salam, you see, was married twice. So he had one wife who had 10 sons, right? Who gave him 10 sons. And the other wife gave him 2 sons, which were Yusuf and Binyamin. So these 10 sons had some type of jealousy with Yusuf alayhi salam, because Yusuf alayhi salam was someone who was really beloved to Yaqub alayhi salam. Yaqub alayhi salam truly loved him and adored him, because sometimes children, because of their nature, because of their habits, because of the fact that they're very young, they tend to become the apple of the eye of their parents. And it's not that the other children are not loved. Others are loved as well. But the thing is that when we grow older, we don't remember how much our parents loved us, because we were young at that time, we were babies, we were infants, we don't remember much. But the thing is that when we look at other siblings who are younger than us, them getting the love and the treatment, we think that they're getting everything and we got nothing. Whereas the real situation is that every child is loved when they are growing up. Parents give them more time and attention. So we find in this story as well that Yusuf alayhi salam was someone who was truly loved by his father for many reasons. A, because he was young at that time, also because of his manners and his general relationship with his father, he was loved more. Now, because of this, what happened was that the brothers began to plot against Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam was told by his father not to share the dream with his brothers. And the reason for that, the scholars mention, is that A, it can cause jealousy, it can cause animosity, and also, it can attract the evil eye. And this is the first place in Surah Yusuf where evil eye has been alluded towards. Also, where evil eye has been alluded towards in the same surah is what comes later on, when Yaqub alayhi salam told his sons to enter Egypt from different gates. So he told his 10 sons, who were mashallah very smart and handsome, all of them, he told them to enter through different gates, because if you have like 10 young men entering from the same gate, obviously it's going to cause a lot of attention, and people are going to look, and maybe they're going to say stuff and so on. So he tried to protect them from the evil eye. So here also he's telling Yusuf alayhi salam not to share this dream with his brothers, because indeed this is a beautiful dream and it may cause animosity or hatred or jealousy to spark up. So what happened was that the 10 brothers began to plot the murder of Yusuf alayhi salam when they realized how special he was to Yaqub alayhi salam. And so, long story short, they came to the father and they said, we want to take him for like a day trip out. We want to go for, like a hiking trip or something. So we want to take him along with us. And initially, Yaqub alayhi salam hesitated, but then when they said that, we're strong men, we'll look after him, then Yaqub alayhi salam allowed them to do so. And so when they left, they wanted to actually murder Yusuf alayhi salam. But one of the brothers, it is mentioned that it was possibly the eldest one, he said that let's not kill him, let's throw him into a well. Because you see, killing him would be blatant sin, right? So it's like you're killing someone. We don't want to live with that kind of guilt. So why don't we like toss him into a well? And because if we toss him into a well, he may live, he may die, he might escape, he might run away. So at least we won't have that on our chests that we actually killed and murdered our brother. So the others agreed and said, okay, we can do that. So what happened? They took Yusuf alayhi salam, who's a young boy, maybe about 7 to 8, 9 years old, and they took him towards the well. And so as they are now surrounding him, they take his shirt off. And so they're poking him, they're punching him, they're pushing him around, they're mocking him, ridiculing him. And so he's asking and he's begging and pleading that, why are you doing this to me? Why are you hurting me like this? And leave me alone, please let me go. So he's begging and pleading everyone that stop harassing me like this. And so Yusuf alayhi salam, in his helplessness, they keep pushing him around from brother to brother until they finally throw him into the well. So Yusuf alayhi salam falls down and they leave him there. They just leave him there in that well. If any one of you has ever seen a well, it's not a cozy place to be in. It's very scary. It freaks you out. And it's not a hospitable place to be in. So they left him there. They took his shirt. They slaughtered an animal and put its blood on the shirt. And they went crying to Yaqub alayhi salam that our brother has been eaten up by the wolf. And Yaqub alayhi salam, he's not buying that. But he had patience and he did not retaliate, which again shows to you how to deal with teenagers. Because these boys are 18, 17, 16. If he were to retaliate against them, they would run off. And he knows that my sons can only be guided through me. So I have to have patience right now and I have to deal with them in the best way that I can. And we find later on in Surah Al-Baqarah, we find that these sons did say towards the end that we will follow our father Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ishaq alayhi salam, and we will be upon Tawheed even after you are gone. So they did change eventually, but at this point they were really acting wicked and evil. Yaqub alayhi salam told them that I will have patience. I complain of my grief to no one, and so he asked them to just leave him alone. Now, what happened was that Yusuf alayhi salam was then picked up by a caravan that was coming to the well. The caravan came, they lowered down the bucket, and lo and behold, a very handsome young boy comes out into the bucket as they pull it up. So they think to themselves that, we can make a lot of money off of this young boy. We'll sell him in the market. He's young, he's got plenty of years ahead of him, and he's a handsome young boy, so we'll get a good price for him. So they took him all the way to Egypt. So the surah, the asbab nuzul of the surah was that the question was asked of the Prophet ﷺ that how did the Bani Israel end up in Egypt? And this is the answer. How did the Bani Israel end up in Egypt? Because there were people living in Palestine, in Palestine. How did they end up in Egypt? So this was because Yusuf alayhi salam was taken up from that well and taken to Egypt. And when he went to Egypt, at the fair or at the marketplace, that's where he was being sold. And so the Aziz of Misr, he happened to be there along with his wife. The Aziz of Misr, a young man at that time, his wife also a young woman at that time. And Yusuf alayhi salam is actually a young boy. So they decided to buy him. They bought him and they kept him as their own servant in their house. And so at this point, you find that Yusuf alayhi salam has been taken out of the well, sold into the marketplace, and now he's working as a servant in the house of the Aziz. Many years pass by and Yusuf alayhi salam turns, let's say, 16, 17 years old. At this time, the wife of the Aziz, Zulaykha, finds herself being very attracted to Yusuf alayhi salam. So she has false desires in her heart. She has this desire and temptations that are provoking her. So she tries to tempt Yusuf alayhi salam. So after trying a few times, she finally has had enough and she says, you know what, now I have to just force myself upon him. There is no other way. So you can classify it like as attempted rape. So one day when nobody's home, she sent the servants away. The Aziz is not at home. She tries to have her way with Yusuf alayhi salam. And so she invites him to a room, locks the door, and she tries to harass him. Yusuf alayhi salam flees from the scene and he runs towards the door. As he's running towards the door, she grabs Yusuf alayhi salam by his shirt. So from the back, she grabs him by his shirt and the shirt is ripped. As soon as the shirt gets ripped, Yusuf alayhi salam at that very moment opens the door to find the Aziz standing there along with one of his relatives. And before Yusuf alayhi salam can say a word, Zulaykha speaks out and says, would you let a man treat me like this? What would you say about a person who treats your wife in this manner? Meaning that she tries to blame Yusuf alayhi salam that he's the one who tried to harass me. Now, the relative of the Aziz, so he was a smart man, he decided to look at the circumstantial evidence. Because Yusuf alayhi salam said, I am free from whatever she's saying. I didn't do nothing which she's saying. So the relative of the Aziz, he said that let's look at the circumstantial evidence. If the shirt has been torn from the front, then this means that Yusuf is blameworthy. Meaning he was the one who tried to attack her. But if the shirt is torn from the back, then that would imply that Yusuf was running away and she's the one who tore the shirt from the back. And so when they examined the shirt, it was actually torn from the back, which proved to the Aziz that his wife was guilty. But he was not a very strong-willed or a strong-hearted person. So he said, you know what, you should make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything will be fine. He was not a person with a lot of ghairat, And so because of that, he just said, he just kind of watered the whole thing down. But this did not stop Zulaykha from her ways, right? So what happened was that this news spread out. This news began to spread, and before you know it, because the servants, they talk. And because this thing happened at the house of the Aziz, all of the servants, they knew what had happened. So servants talked to other servants, and other servants talked to their masters, and so on and so forth. And so soon enough, word got round that the wife of the Aziz is in love with her slave, which is a very shocking piece of gossip news that can circulate very quickly amongst a society that is thriving off of gossip. So when Zulaikha found out that word had gotten around and people were talking about this, that, what happened to this woman? I mean, what possibly led her to fall in love with the slave, or, so on and so forth. I mean, what happened to her? Is she crazy? Has she lost her mind? Whatever. She decided to invite all the ladies for a coffee party, quote unquote coffee party. Because you see, at that time, these were the elite, like, mind you, these were the elite of the society at that time. So they decided to have like this, coffee morning or something, and all these ladies come over. And Zulaikha offers them fruits and knives to cut fruit and to eat them. And then she conveniently invites Yusuf alayhi salam to come in, to attend to something. And as Yusuf alayhi salam walks in, the ladies gaze at Yusuf alayhi salam and they are shocked, in awe at the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam. And instead of cutting the fruit, they actually cut their own fingers in the process. And when Zulaikha sees this, she tells Yusuf alayhi salam to now go. And then she says to the ladies that this is what I wanted to show you, that you blamed me for falling in love with somebody like this, but truly I will have him no matter what happens. Either I will have my way with him or I will imprison him, which basically shows to you that Zulaikha was not truly in love with Yusuf alayhi salam. Because if she was truly in love with him, she would never dream of sending him to prison. But she said, either I will have him or I will imprison him. Meaning, nobody can do this to me and get away with it. Yusuf alayhi salam at that point is making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, rather than this fitna, I would rather be in jail. I would rather go to prison than to be in this fitna. So what happens now? Yusuf alayhi salam gets sent to prison. Now in prison, Yusuf alayhi salam is known by the people to be a pious man. People know that, mashallah, this is a pious man because of his manners, because of his akhlaq, because of the way he deals with other inmates. People know that he's a righteous man. And so soon enough, people start coming to him with interpretation of dreams. So you find that in this surah, there is a lot of mention of dreams. So one of the guys, he comes to Yusuf alayhi salam and he says that, I have seen a dream that I am pressing wine. I am taking wine out of grapes. And so the other guy, he comes up and he says that I saw that I'm carrying bread on top of my head. And there are birds that are eating from that bread. How do you interpret these dreams? So Yusuf alayhi salam gave the interpretation to the first one that you, my dear friend, will be freed. But he did not give them the interpretation of the dream before he gave them dawah. First he called them to Allah, that I will tell you about the dream, but first, is it okay to worship one God or multiple gods? What do you think is better? So even inside the prison, he's calling people to what? Towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at what an amazing man he is. And so then he gives them the interpretation. He says, okay, so the person who said that he saw himself pressing wine, he said that you will be released and you will become a close advisor to the king. Wow, what a dream, huh? And the second guy who said that I saw that I'm carrying a basket of bread on my head and there are birds that are eating from that, Yusuf alayhi salam told him that unfortunately you will not be able to make it. You will be executed and birds will feed off of your dead carcass. And this is exactly what happened. One guy was executed in the next couple of days and the other guy was released. But Yusuf alayhi salam told him that when you leave this place, talk to the king and tell him about me. That I've been wrongfully accused and I've been put in prison over something that I never did. And so when this person is released, he forgets about the promise he had made to Yusuf alayhi salam. Years pass by, many years pass by, and then finally one day the king has a dream. And the king sees that 7 thin cows are eating 7 fat cows. And 7 grains of corn he sees in his dream. So the king is very confused because you see, these are not the kind of dreams we normally have. Normally our dreams are dreams based upon our own subconscious thoughts. If you've been playing football all day, you'll probably see yourself playing football in your dreams as well. If you've been working with numbers all day long, even in your dreams, you're now working with numbers and so on. So these are dreams based upon your subconscious. But then there are dreams from shaitan, which come in the form of nightmares. And then there are dreams from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which are the true dreams. So this king sees this weird dream where 7 thin cows are eating 7 fat cows. So he goes to his advisors and asks these people, and nobody knows except the guy who was released from prison and who is now the advisor to the king. And he says, hang on a second, I know someone who is great at interpreting dreams. As a matter of fact, his interpretation of the dream led me to where I am right now. So the king says, I would love to meet this man. So Yusuf alayhi salam is asked about the interpretation of the dream, and Yusuf alayhi salam tells the king that your dream means that you're going to have 7 years of great produce, great corn produce. You'll have very good, your land will give out a lot of wealth in terms of agriculture for 7 years. And the next 7 years will be years of drought. And so I advise you to stock up on the stuff now, and you can basically you can stock up on the stuff now, and then for the next 7 years that come again, you can basically reserve that stuff and you can give it to those people who are more needing of it and who are more deserving. So this is basically what Yusuf alayhi salam had told him. Now the king, he said to Yusuf alayhi salam that I will take you out from the prison. I'm willing to take you out of prison. But Yusuf alayhi salam put a condition there. He said, okay, I will come out, but first and foremost, you have to clear my name. You have to clear my name. Meaning that I cannot be released from prison and yet still people hold me blameworthy for something that I haven't done. So the king called and invited all the ladies, including Zulaikha and everybody else who was at that time, to come and testify. And so by that time, many years had passed by, and so Zulaikha, she said, and all the other women said as well, that, you know, it was our mistake, and Yusuf is actually free from any sin that we can attribute to him. He's free from all those charges. So this is basically now what Yusuf alayhi salam had experienced, and he was rightfully made the one second, guys are saying you're not able to see the video. Okay, one second, let me just try to fix this issue, inshallah. One second, please. I'll just try to fix the video issue. Okay, so just give me a second here while I try to resolve the video issue. If not, then we'll have to work with the audio. I do apologize for that. Okay. Just one second, guys. I'm just trying to fix this video issue here. I hope that we can resolve it quickly, inshallah.